for a very long time, when I was cutting myself, I was so infatuated with death that I did not know how to live. I wanted to die. But when I came to know Christ, that's when I end up falling in love with life.
Hi, thank you for joining yet another episode of Get Set with Lissette. This is where we have inspiring conversations that empower you to get set. And today is going to be one of those episodes. I know I say it all the time, but it's because I believe it. Every person that I sit down with personally inspires me. And I personally feel like if their stories resonate with me, they'll resonate with you. So today I have with me Pastor Veronica Dixon. Veronica is a licensed pastor, an author, and coach. She founded Blossom by Being in 2020 with a goal to remind each woman of Jeremiah 29:11, which reads, "For I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you and not harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." Want to know some of the services that she offers? She offers mentorship, one-on-one spiritual coaching, teen support groups, women's group, and support group for grieving women specifically. So, thank you so much, Veronica, for joining me.
You're welcome.
Like, you are that girl. Like, you're doing all the things.
Yeah.
I always like to start my episodes just to kind of get the jitters out, doing something else. We do a quick rapid fire, right? It's to get an idea of what you are. Are you, okay, sweet or salty?
Salty.
Okay. Morning person or night owl?
Morning owl.
Really?
Yeah.
Morning.
I don't fool with the night.
Okay. I ain't mad at it.
I also have a 1-year-old, so we'll talk about that in our...
Okay. Yeah. There you go. Introvert or extrovert?
Depending on the situation, but I would say I'm an extrovert.
Really? Okay. Depending on situation.
Yeah.
And then this last one, there is no wrong answer.
Okay.
But are you going to watch the YouTube or listen to the podcast?
Well, I'm going to watch it.
You're going to watch it. You want to know?
I'm a visual person.
Okay. So I always like to qualify and kind of set a baseline of why the conversation of what it is that we're talking about. And then I want to get into you specifically and the ministry that you are building, how you've been called to this ministry and what that means.
Yeah.
So what I did was I looked at faith in general, right?
Okay.
Not just Christianity, but faith.
Okay.
And what does that look like and what does that mean? And so I found a study in American Journal of Psychiatry found that individuals who attend services of faith regularly are 76% less likely to experience major depression. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And then it continued to say that people with strong faith tend to have lower levels of stress, anxiety, and depression. And then in 2018, there was a Harvard study that found a correlation in people raised in religious homes, that they tend to have stronger familial bonds and are more involved in their communities, right? So there seems to be this need for faith, especially in the world that we live in today. There clearly seems to be a correlation between when you are a person of faith, or if you have faith of some sort, or you believe in something bigger and greater than yourself, that you walk around with less anxiety. You walk around with less, you're not depressed. You don't have certain things. And so I thought that information alone was a great baseline.
Yeah.
Because A, you are a woman of God. You have a divine purpose on your life and you're moving forward within it. But I think that people need to know, to believe in something greater than yourself, it allows for you to look at the world from a different lens, right? So I thought that was just a good information to kind of get started so that individuals know exactly what we're talking about and what it means. Because there's a lot of people, in my opinion, that they lack faith in anything. It's not my job to pour or push what I'm saying.
Correct.
But I want people to know that there is something greater.
Correct.
I know what I believe in, and I am a woman of faith, and I am of a Christian faith, and you and I have known each other since forever.
Yeah.
But I try my best to just do exactly what I say, which is having these inspiring conversations so that we can empower a community to do more.
Oh, yeah, most definitely.
So that's where that comes from. Now, in that, let's talk about Pastor Veronica. So who is Veronica? Where do you come from? Talk about your past, and then we'll go into your ministry.
Yeah. So Veronica Dixon, prior to my married name, Gonzalez, is from Newark, New Jersey, from a city that went through a lot of violence in the heart of Newark.
Okay.
My mother and father had me and my brother. I'm the baby.
Okay.
And so we traveled from Newark to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania when I was 9 years old.
Okay.
And then I lived here till I was in my teens. And then God opened a door or sent me away to Huntsville, Alabama.
Okay.
So growing up, not from a faith background.
Right.
My mother and father had a very abusive relationship. And my father went to prison when I was 9 years old.
Wow.
And that's why we traveled out of Newark, New Jersey to Harrisburg.
Wow.
To get away. But his situation kind of just came knocking on his door, our door, and we end up having, in some form, I end up doing that sentence with him.
Wow, that's deep.
Emotionally, and so my mom encountered God when I was around 10 or 11, around there, and started going to church, and never had been in a church in my whole entire life.
Right.
And that's when my journey, my journey of discovering who God was, but I had not really encountered him.
Ooh,
yeah.
That's it right there. There's discovery versus encounter. Oh my God. I would love for you to unpack that, but keep going. I'm like, that's amazing.
Yeah. So I discovered him. I learned the traditions and the agendas of man. I learned what to do, what not to do. I learned what to wear, what not to wear. I learned all those things. And at times, growing up, feeling like it was a dress rehearsal. And so my identity did not come from God as per se at that moment, even though now I know I've always had an identity with God, but I had never encountered that identity. I encountered what man wanted me to be. And that's where a lot of what Veronica ended up doing in life, going through my depression and my suicide ideations and different things like that, of feeling like I was not enough. And so that's a little bit of who Veronica was, what Veronica needed to go through to be birthed into who she is today. And that's really I did not know at that time that was the necessary plan for my life. But I now know that I would not be able to encounter and impart in so many women if I had not encountered what that religious scene looked like versus what the relationship looks like.
Girl, you've said two things that I want us to kind of hit on just based off of your experience from growing up and then who you are today. And I resonate so much with it. I know I resonate. We have very similar experiences where I grew up in church. I understood what that meant. I understood the check boxes and the things that you're supposed to do. But what I did not have fully or grasp, should I say, was relationship.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's that difference between doing the things versus really having relationship.
Correct.
And so I wanted to just go back because you made a comment that hit me, and that was you had how did you put it? You said you had a divine, you had met an introduction to him, but you didn't encounter him. So can you talk about what does that mean to someone who has no relation or no understanding that there can definitely be a difference? What does that look like to you?
Yeah. So what that looks like for me is more of understanding, getting up, going to church, right? Being part of ministries, right?
Yeah.
Learning how to do things, living in the doing. right? Instead of blooming in your being.
Ooh.
And that was like really big. Like, I was a girl that had multi gifts. Like I am still a girl
You are.
woman,
Yeah.
I sing, I dance. It's very attracting to a church when they meet me of, we can use her here, we can use her here, but they did not know the condition of the
Okay.
soul.
Mm.
And so I went to church but they didn't know that when they were dressing me to dance, I was being molested. They didn't know that
Wow.
when people were praying for me, they were praying about my future, but nobody could tell me what was happening now.
Present, right.
Giving me direction. And so being a young girl, looking for validation, not having my dad, having insecurities, dealing with depression, being anxious, I was looking for something that I now know they could never give me.
Right.
But at that moment, because it was painted as, a place that encompasses everything.
Right.
Why not? As little girls, like a candy shop, right? It's like everything in this one place.
Right.
But then at night, I was going home cutting myself.
Oh,
and
wow.
and so it was very, very heavy on me. And I think that's where the transition came from. God saying, you know what, I have to save you from you.
Oh.
I have to save you from you.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where that piece comes into me coming into, what is that for me? And I
Right.
remember my mom getting married with my stepdad and his best man, Pastor Leon Manigan, he after the wedding, I went with him and I was scared. I was scared because I had been molested. I was being molested. And I was going through all those things, and now I'm going with a man that I
Right.
don't know.
That you don't know.
But there was a sense of peace and comfort that came upon me that I realized that if I don't leave this city's going to kill me.
Mm.
And and that's how I felt. And that's, I was not headed the right way.
Right.
And I would have become a statistic rather than
Right.
breaking it.
Right.
And from a very little girl, just to let you know,
Yeah.
from a very little girl, I had been dealing with, different things. Like I had a speech impediment where the doctor told me I would never speak.
And look at you.
And look at me today,
Right.
So different things that I've had to break. Barriers were easy to break, but they were scary when I did not have the support I needed to break them.
Absolutely. And you as a child, while you know that there's barriers here, but we tend to want to lean on the adults.
Correct.
The adult figure.
As a child,
as a child, like that is who we expect to lean on.
Yep.
And kudos to you that even though you were fearful, because God, thank you so much for sharing and being vulnerable, because this is going to bless someone. But B, like how amazing of you this has been my experience in the past with men in positions. This has been my experiences in the past with men in general. But having the foresight to be able to just say, I have peace here. I trust, and taking that leap of faith, like talk about like what that leap of faith does for you. Like it changes your entire trajectory, does it not?
Oh, yeah. Oh my goodness. Yes, it does change. And one of the things that I love is that even when I went with him, and he assured me, he's married still. Him and his wife are pastoring.
Yeah.
They have beautiful children. And they were inviting me, but they were met with anger, bitterness, unforgiveness, pride, selfishness, all those things. Because again, remember when my father went to prison at 9 years old, when I was 9 years old, when he got locked up, so did I. My dad was my all in all, still is my all in all. So,
absolutely.
When he was ripped, and then the reason why he went to prison, and then all these things just coming to reality of me having to deal with, it was a lot for me to look at a man and call him father, right? call him father, like,
Right.
you know, or even I would be jealous. You know, I would be jealous of the little girls that had their dads or, you know, and different things like that. And so, you know, having that void. And so here you see this man coming in. He's African American. He comes in, he's married to a Caucasian woman. And I'm walking in their house and I'm like, this is like a mansion. Like,
Right.
you know, how
Yes.
do I deal with this?
Right.
And taking one step out of a time. And he used to do these things with me where he would have these meetings with me of, you know, come in the room with me and your mom, you know, or, you know, later on as I was traveling in my journey and I would sit down and we would just talk and he would just, you know, be a safe place for me. And he just went through those things with me. Like, you know, I went to school.
Right.
Harrisburg School District compared to Huntsville, Alabama is totally different.
I can't imagine.
I went to Huntsville, Alabama. You know, in high school, I was in an elementary school level. So I was having to learn things I had never learned, barriers.
Yeah.
And my faith and then he said something. He said, when you come to church, just sit.
There.
Just sit. And when you're ready, let me know where you want to serve. And I was like, he just told me to sit first instead of so those little things were just healing mechanisms for me that the Lord used.
So, and please, we're going left, but I told you this is what's
okay.
happened.
It's all right.
This is what we do because, girl, I need to unpack everything that you're sharing because it's A, profound, and B, it's amazing that you found someone that it wasn't a matter of your gifts that he was looking to do. It seems like he was the first person to see you.
See me.
To see definitely. Veronica.
He saw Veronica.
And then he says, sit. Stay still. Do not come in with all of the things. Just sit. And is that not how it should be when it comes to faith? Like,
should be.
Like, talk about like how what he did in man form, should I say, is what we should do when we look for faith. Like, how does that?
Yeah. So it makes me think about the story in the Bible where, you know, just a simple story. That's how my girls all the time of when Jesus went to his disciples and he said, drop your net, follow me, and then I will make you a fisher of all men. And it's such a powerful, like, just scripture alone, because when you look at it, you're like, okay, first of all, I have to drop something.
Right.
I have to drop something. That something could symbolize anything. For me, it was, I'm dropping Harrisburg. I'm out.
You're out. You have to get away.
Yeah, I have to get away
from that life.
And sometimes from the things within me, right? I have to drop it. And then I have to follow him. So I followed him. I followed the God in him. And I said, okay, we're going to travel. We're going to go to a whole nother city where I don't know nothing about, right? It's a faith walk, right?
Absolutely.
And then after that, I learned how and what it looks like to be a fisher of just me first.
Girl.
Finding me.
Girl, don't have me.
Finding me.
Yes.
And that's the beauty of God. It's like, I really did find me. And in return, now I can be that Pastor Leon to other people.
Absolutely.
And see them in areas that no one sees them.
Right.
And that's where we are now.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Girl, let me just, okay. Like, honey, you are giving so much, but you're not wrong. Like,
it's true.
I'm putting all of this down. Like, so I'm going to try my best. Okay, so now let's forward. So you finally find a place and a space where you were able to sit. You were able to find Veronica.
Oh, yeah.
You're able to now lean into that and give freely.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So is it at that point that you then go all in ministry?
No.
Or like, so talk about how does that journey then go?
So the journey goes where my mom ends up traveling to Huntsville, Alabama, moving there.
Okay. So she came in
she came down with my stepdad and lived there. And I had to live with her. I had to leave what I was.
Well, you were starting to establish.
And live with her. And I did not realize that in the transition of all that, there was still a lot happening under the surface. And to be honest with you, I didn't know the reasons of those things till later on, a couple years ago. But it was hard for me to transition back.
Yeah.
And long story short, it just was very uncomfortable for me.
Yeah.
And so what happened was I ended up coming to Harrisburg to visit. And I was in a really, really unstable place in my life not within my faith, but with understanding of timing, understanding of process, understanding that, this was necessary. A lot of people talk about their relationship with God, but a lot of people don't understand that suffering is part of it. And they, they preach, they talk or they preach or teach or coach, providence and, providing and money and all this. But do you not know that suffering is part of this journey, right? And so I didn't understand all that, even though it was embedded in me. I didn't understand it. So I ended up coming to Harrisburg and getting pregnant with my daughter.
Wow.
Getting pregnant with my daughter. And I went back home and I told my mom, I got it planned. I'm out. I'm out.
Okay.
And I left and I came to Harrisburg.
And you came
the
back.
Very place that God removed me out of bondage, I ended up coming back.
Wow.
Now realizing that the place I was coming back, what I saw as bondage was actually my promised land.
What?
Yeah.
How do you figure? Unpack that for me. What do you mean it was actually
because there was another level within me that I had not discovered and I wasn't going to discover until I came back to this ground.
So it's because you actually had to, and I don't want to put words in your mouth. Are you saying that you had to confront?
I had to.
Okay.
I had to confront it because I had now come back since I left.
Right.
And so I had to confront going down the alleyway, confront looking at the store that I was being molested at.
Wow.
Go back to the house that my dad got locked up. I had to go back to those places. I really had to make sure that I was really allowing myself to grow without any hindrances of location, smells, people, which is trauma.
Right.
I mean, sometimes those are triggers, and I wanted to be able to, wherever God was going to use me in my city, I wanted to go, and I didn't want to be triggered by those locations because I didn't go back. And so I had to go back, and I got pregnant, and I had Liana and my now almost 21-year-old daughter. And that, I'm not going to lie to you, I wrote a whole book on it. When I had my daughter is the day where my whole life changed. Wow. It was as though I was confronting me as a baby. Because when she came out, I was like, me and her father was not in good stance. We were in the middle of separation, whatever, going to be separated, but we were cordial.
Right.
And I looked at her and I said, I can't repeat the cycle. I can't.
It ends here.
It ends here. And I literally, and after that, I went, believe it or not, I went and got my high school diploma because when I was in Huntsville, Alabama, I ended up not being able to graduate.
You left, then right?
Yeah. Well, it was more of I failed their graduation exam at one point.
Oh, girl.
So they didn't get rid of the book. That's okay. I went back. I tried with my daughter, got my degree, my diploma, and then my life just started
to flourish.
Yes.
So we're gonna talk about all this and then go to where you've been led. So, guys, I'm not at the point of key takeaways, but she's giving gems here.
Yeah.
So, because you're saying that in order for you to get to your actual purpose, in order for you to actually continue to grow,
correct,
you could not continue to run. There was a point in your life where in order for you to become firm and to find Veronica, you had to get away because you needed the ability to remove yourself,
reset,
grow, reset, and become firm in who Veronica is, so that there was no ability to play with or deter or move you out of firmness of I know who I am and there is no breaking me. And the minute that God was able to get you into a place where you felt firm, you then have to come back and actually confront the same past that you were like, no, Lord, you've removed me from here.
Yeah.
But you needed to confront it.
Yeah.
You needed to actually heal from it.
Yeah.
Because how are you ever going to be able to move forward when you haven't actually dealt with what was?
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
And it's in that moment and in those moments, and I'm a firm believer, I always tell people you can't have a testimony without test.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
So you're tested, you see suffering, you're almost getting ready to repeat the same things, but now you have a child and you're like, oh, no, now it ends.
Yeah.
It stops here.
Yeah.
Am I summing it up? And
you did perfect.
So I'm like, because girl.
It's a lot.
And so, but then in that, so now you have the baby, you decide to end it.
Yeah.
At what point then, does life take you, do you go straight into ministry there, or how do you continue? Because girl, this is a lot. You got, no wonder you wrote a book.
It's a lot. It is a lot. And it's a lot in between those things, right? That we don't have the time to really speak about. But one of the things that I did was I said to the Lord, I said, I want to go to a church.
Okay.
But I did not want to be attracted to the church because of the sound.
Girl.
I wanted to be attracted to the church because of the heartbeat.
I'm ready to throw something.
Yeah.
That's a word.
Yeah. And so growing up, I grew up in the Pentecostal faith.
Right.
So, you know, there's just certain things that you just did.
Right.
And you just learn the behaviors and you learn. And I was so through with that. And I didn't want my daughter to experience that.
Right.
So I went to a Baptist church in Harrisburg. Harrisburg. And I just sat. Because I knew that in that church, you know, I didn't see women serving a whole lot or doing preaching and stuff, which was fine with me because it did not tempt me or rouse me to do anything because it was like I had to sit.
Right.
And I just sat there. I took my daughter. I went under 3 women, which is Tracy, Laurel, and Judy. And I sat up under them and they mentored me. They were my tightest women. They mentored me on how to cook. They taught me, you know, how to budget. They taught me things that I needed to know.
Life skills.
Yes. And I just sat up under them, went to church on Sunday, did my Bible study, and went home.
Yeah.
And that's where I started to encounter who God the Father is, was when I sat and I just allowed him to pursue me while I was just pursuing him. Like he was drawn to me as I was drawn to him and vice versa.
Right. And now and can we just also talk about the beautiful parallel that as a child, you were brought to a place and you were told to just sit and enjoy. And here you are now in your adulthood. And rather than going to what could easily have been you would have been like already starting ministry, doing things and following all of the bells and whistles, you literally went right back to what you had been taught in the past.
That's it.
And you sat like, girl, that's
powerful, isn't it?
Beyond. And if y'all not picking up on it, like sit with it.
Yes.
Let me tell you. That's beautiful. And now here you are in your adulthood doing the exact same thing. And now you encounter. And now you have relationship. And then from there on, you're able to move.
That's it. And I did that, honey. Like, it was just like, really like, okay, it makes sense now. And why was it so hard? Why is it so hard for me to?
Right.
But as a child, you do as you're told, right?
100%.
And you do what you say. You know what I'm saying? So, and then now we have, you know, I have my daughter. I'm going to work.
Right.
And I meet my husband. And my husband, Pastor Veronica Dixon, my heartbeat, he's just an amazing man. And I met him. He's all the way from Omaha, Nebraska.
Go figure.
And he came here. And he doesn't have no family here. He traveled here with his job. And I saw him in the call center that I worked at.
Okay.
And I just started to pray for him. First of all, let me just say that while I was going through that, I went through a time of consecration where for a whole year, I did not date. I didn't do anything.
You just healed.
I just healed.
Yes.
Like I didn't, like it was just me and God and my daughter. That was it. And because those things came easy to me. And I also remember I'm healing from, you know, being promiscuous. I'm healing from a lot of things, you know, of being molested. That births a lot of things, right? And so I had to really heal within my soul when it came to that. But, you know, I just started to pray for him. I was drawn to him. And I told one of his coworkers, the supervisors, I said, who is that? Right. And she said, that's Fontaine. And I said, oh. And she said, why you asked? And I said, no reason. I just wanted to say his name in prayer. And I just prayed for him. And then it was like one day we just went to dinner. And then that was pretty much it. He wasn't saved. Like, we went to dinner. I told him, you know, these are my boundaries.
Right.
This is, you know,
this is who I am. This is,
you know, he was independent. He had just been coming out of a marriage himself.
Okay.
With someone from Omaha. And so it was a lot for him too.
Right.
But one thing I loved about him was that it wasn't, you know, he didn't want me because of what I had.
Right.
It was more of like, I have a job, I have money, I have a house, I have a car. I don't really need you, but I do like you.
Right.
I would like to get to know you. And that was different in courting for me. You know what the it was different. Like, hold on now. You're like, I've been with yeah, so that's how yours. I mean, it's just
ain't been the best.
No. And he's the oldest of 6.
Yeah.
So, and it was just refreshing.
Right.
And then we just started dating, and I said, well, if you want to date me, you got to go to church meet me at church, because, and me and my daughter's grandmother, and stuff like that. And because me and Leona's dad have an amazing relationship. And so his family and I have an amazing relationship. And he said, oh, okay. And we kind of left it at that. And then one Sunday morning, he pops up and he gets saved. He gets baptized. Wow. And then our pastor at that time, Pastor Mike, ends up marrying us. And then it was just like, Veronica, what is this? Is this a dream?
Right. You're like, hold on now. What we got going on?
Yeah.
But kudos to you. I was even going to ask, like, the why of being, like, called to pray for, like, what, like, you just felt called to pray for that man.
Yeah.
And you just knew in your heart of hearts, and you're like, I need to know who that is. And now look at you.
Yeah, because one of my callings on my life is an intercessor.
Yeah.
And I do have, like, in my growth with God, my heart has grown to really pick up in the atmosphere people I can pray for that's in need. And so, I can sense, I was sitting right here and he was sitting right here.
Right.
So I look at him every day.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I can sense, just looking at him and passing, or, that he needed prayer. Right. And so because I was in a place of solitude, I was in a place of peace, I was trying to be one with God and walk this thing. I mean, it was easy for me to pray for him, not knowing that I was praying for my husband.
Your actual, that's the beauty. That's why I wanted to go back. Like, how amazing is it that you feel this necessity, and now fast forward, you are literally setting the stage up, putting in the works, sowing the seed for who will become your husband.
Yeah.
Like, girl, talk about a dream.
Yeah, dream. It was a vision that I could not, people say sometimes, I mean, I really can't wrap my mind for God's love for me because of my humanity. But when I really think about just how he allowed me to just come from a place of, from beauty to, from ashes to beauty, and really be able to really embrace that you literally chose this man to be in this state for me.
Right.
And you chose to, like, literally, you chose to allow him to go what he went through in order for him to be prepared to handle the call, but also me handle the call on him.
Right.
Because we're both pastoring together as a team. Yeah.
Like, now you guys are literally like a man who, we're going to set the stage, and then we're going to get into the ministry talk and how you've gotten into it. Because I feel like we have a good baseline of you, Veronica, is and where you're going. And so we're going to talk about what you're doing, but we're going to set the stage for it. So we went from a woman who was literally, everything was set against you. You've been molested as a child. You've been, you've had the suicidal thoughts. You didn't want to be here any longer. You are hurt and angry and broken, and God works through you and heals all of those things and puts you in a position now that you honestly are not just talking to individuals from a place of, oh, let me just have a conversation. No, it's a place of understanding. It's a place of recognizing. It's a place of, I promise you, I've been, I've walked, I've seen, I'm here, I'm there with you. I can really see you, just like you needed someone to see you.
That part.
Right? And then same thing happens for your husband, who has to be hurt and broken and moved and taken from, and comes from a place that has no faith, no background whatsoever. And without knowing, here comes a woman who has done the work herself already, right? And is able to now pray for that man.
Yeah.
And now there's this divine union that occurs.
That's it.
And now you're both pastors.
Both pastors.
Girl.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me say something while you shared that.
Yes.
But because I'm very, like, intentional with, because I know someone's going to hear this and be like, you know what, and dealing with depression or dealing with suicide or but I want to let you know that for a very long time, when I was cutting myself and trying, and, at one point, like, to that point of death, I was so infatuated with death that I did not know how to live. So like,
Girl.
yeah. So for me, I wanted to die.
Right.
I had that relationship with death. I did. It was done in dark, all those things. But when I came to know Christ, really not, I'm not talking about church. I'm not talking about pastors. I'm not talking about all that stuff.
Right.
I'm talking about just Christ, just a solid relationship. Like something has to be higher than this, right? And I encounter God. That's when I end up falling in love with life. And so when I met my husband, our first year was hard because I was in transition of what does that look like being a single mom and to being married, right?
And a wife, right?
But God reminded me why he had to call me out of that grave and why he had to resurrect me and why he had to put me in the place where I was strong in him so I can be what I did not see. Because most of the pastors that I was connected to outside of two, which is my pastor's wife now and my pastor Leon's wife, I didn't have those relationships with my pastor's wives.
Right. You had no idea.
So I had to learn through all of these. We've been married 16 years. Through the first 2-3 years of how to be a wife in order to be a pastor's wife. I have to say that because then it would have been unbalanced. Right. Because ministry, I've always saw that ministry overrides your family. Right. And I had to learn, no, it's God, your family, and ministry, period. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And so when you don't understand that, you will fall in those. So I had to say that.
No, I'm not mad at it. No, that's important. It's important to share. And then, like I said, you are sharing what a lot of people probably either have found themselves in or grappling with. People don't understand. So I'm just trying my best to your story is phenomenal.
Thank you.
Putting it all together and then finding you to be in a place, in a position now where you have literally, like you said yourself, gone from the ashes and brought back to the woman who stands in front of me today.
Yeah.
And this woman in God and this woman in faith and this woman in Christ who is now taking all of those things and now the two of you go into pastorship together or what did that journey Al Fontaine is also saying now you're married, you are two women, Jesus, I did not mean that. I take it back. So sorry. You are now two people in faith finding your new life as married, husband and wife, and then you go directly into ministry or
no, we don't go directly in ministry. So we visit some churches, and then we landed up under our pastors.
Okay.
Pastor Larry and Joanna Burchett was in Carlisle, and we landed up under them. A smaller church again reminds me of where God had me sit and grow.
Right.
And we just sat up under them. And long story short, it's funny because, when you have a call on your life, you get this zeal and this, this passion of feeling like, okay, and right now it's time, right? And so we're having those conversations with our pastors, like we're going to open a church, we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And my pastor, I remember him just looking at us with these, his tears in his eyes, like he did not want to tell us no, but he was screaming out of his skin like it's not time, right? But we went out and we opened our church in our apartment on Trindle Road. And and in that year God spoke to my husband. And he said to him, you got to go back home.
Ooh.
You got to go back home. And he came to me, he said, babe, we have to go back home. And I said, at this point we have members in our church. Right. We're opening our doors every Sunday, we're making the stereo a pulpit. And we're like, why are we doing this? And meaning why are we going back home? And he said, we got to go back home. So we went back home and we had a conversation with our pastors. And he said, I'm not going to tell you to close your church, but I am going to tell you that you have to come up under me for you to be trained and get ready. You did not get that before you left. And so my husband and I submitted ourselves for a year. And in 2016, we got ordained and licensed. My husband got ordained and licensed as a pastor. I got ordained and licensed as an evangelist. And then a couple years later, my husband ordained me and licensed me as a pastor.
Okay. Can we just say, because yet again, all of this are the moments that I find the most beautiful. And it's the fact that, because I feel like all people are guilty of it. You feel something on your heart. You know that there's a passion and something you want to do, right? And so you're like, okay, Lord, I'm ready.
Yep.
But how beautiful and how, I can't even think of the word right now, but I mean, kudos to Pastor Fontaine for having enough to put ego down and say, this is not about me. This is not about my flesh. This is not about what I know I want to do. But you know what, Lord, if you're telling me I need to sit down again, like that takes a lot, because it's very easy for us to allow, because we feel it in our hearts and know, like, you know, that balance is like this ridiculous balance of, I know that this is what I want to do. I know I'm passionate about it. I know that I'm ready to go. But if it's not time, it's not time.
It's not time.
You know, and that is something that can be really
powerful,
hard.
Oh, yeah.
But God's timing is perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And yet we tend to, as people, be like, but Lord, no, you gave me this.
Yeah.
I know that I'm supposed to do this.
Yeah.
You know I'm supposed to do this.
Most definitely.
So let's go.
Yeah.
But I mean, again, you guys have continued to find moments, and I don't even know what I'm going to call this episode yet, but the fact that you guys continue to sit, it's like this idea of like being
be still.
Mm-hmm. And it's in the moments of stillness.
That's it.
That you then are able to then go tenfold further, because you have enough faith.
Yeah.
To say, okay, I trust.
Yeah.
I know that I'm supposed to do this.
Yeah.
Let me go ahead and go back.
Most definitely.
And sit down.
Most definitely.
My God.
Yeah.
Like I keep putting everything you say and I'm bringing it back because, girl.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
Oh, yeah. That's why my book is called While in the Waiting Room.
Hello.
Because it makes sense. My whole life has been a waiting room. But it's also been, in some form, it's been a picture of what, when you wait, what you can produce.
Okay.
And what you can, you know, and that's huge for me. And I love how you know, bring all that together to come to that, you know, to come to the where we are now, because it does give people a picture of, listen, I know you want to do it.
Right.
You know, and now I'm on the other side of being a pastor talking about, I know you want to do it.
Absolutely.
You know, but have you thought about this? Have you considered this? You know, you allow people, that's the beautiful thing of the gift of free will. You have to allow people to choose. And because of God's grace and because of his favor upon our lives, I believe, you know, that either way they choose, he's still going to meet them like he did us. It just might, you know, instead of 4 years, it might be 40 years. But in the end of the day, you're still going to be met.
Exactly. And you have to have that faith.
You have to.
So this is a random question.
Yeah.
It's going in what you're saying, girl. We going everywhere. But how, should I say, and what was it that kept you both at this point? Because now Fontaine's in the story too. How were you able to know that it was God's voice? Like, know that this is what we're being led to do, and I must, you know what I mean? And then B, my next question after, like, how were you able to like hear God's voice? Because I know sometimes people feel like God's speaking to me, but like you need to be able to discern.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, how are you able to A, discern and like know that it's God's voice, and then B, like, what kept the two of you guys like firm in those decisions and saying like, no, we have to continue to do this because this is the way? Like, what was it that kept you guys saying, this is what we're being called and we know we have to do this now and let me go for it? Like, how, like, what does that look like?
Yeah. So I tell people about hearing God's voice, right? So you could hear God's voice multiple ways.
Yeah.
It doesn't only have to be audibly, right? Sometimes he uses our senses to speak to us, right? You know, sometimes he uses another person, right? But God's voice is always going to produce fruit, period, right? So there's there's really 4 voices, but I say 3 voices because there is God's voice, the enemy's voice, and your voice, right? And so, you know, the enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy. So you know what that voice is. So if that voice comes to tell you, no, you know, you should stay, don't close those doors, you know, what does that look like for you as a pastor? You know that's the enemy's voice.
Right, because it's all ego. Right.
It's all ego.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So when we heard God's voice, when God spoke to my husband through the scriptures. All right. Which is his word.
Absolutely.
Right. So
Absolutely.
he spoke to Fontaine through the scriptures. We knew that was God. And then we wait for confirmation, right? A lot of times we move, and I'm a big one. I'm going to wait for confirmation.
Okay.
Right. So I'm going to wait till God shows me another. I'd rather be told several times.
I know that's
there to go. I learned too much at 40 years old. Right. So I wait, but we got a confirmation. And then on top of that, what allowed us to come together was, you have to understand, like, throughout that year or 2 years, I learned how to really submit to God first.
there
right.
it is. Yes.
And in my course journey, I've been learning how to submit to God. So in seeing God in my husband, it was easy for me to submit to him.
Absolutely.
So when he brought me this, I could sense I could be a hindrance,
right,
or I can really push him into his destiny, because this was a man. This is now God and Fontaine.
Absolutely.
Right? I'm just included in that story.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Because he is the shepherd. He is the under shepherd, right?
Absolutely.
So at this point, it is God and Fontaine. So he's having one of those encounters with God, like Job did, like David did.
Yes.
And so it's my job. If I look at the Bible, I can be an Eve. Right?
Girl.
Or I can be, someone that pushes him. So I chose to submit to him and say, hey, you know what I'm saying? Like, if that's what we're going to do, that's what we're going to do. And if the people that are with us don't understand, then they just don't understand.
And they're not your people.
And they're not our people. But at least they'll be able to see that we want to do the right thing because it's right.
Right.
And we didn't lose nobody.
Because, of course, when you're moving in the right heart and you're moving in the right way, of course you wouldn't.
Yeah.
Because they understand that you guys are moving
in the right way.
Yeah. And you're following the word. You're following God.
And we're living what we're preaching.
And that, can we just
that's
talk about
the word?
I was going to say, that's a whole nother thing. You're actually living
what we're preaching.
What a concept. Like, what a concept. And you're being true testaments of what that means, what that looks like.
Yep.
You're being an example of living those things. And if we got to take a step backwards in order to take 3 steps forwards, that's what you got to do, and that's okay. And now you're in a position to now really, really, really thrive, because you're not doing it based upon what you want.
No, ma'am.
But based upon what you know you are called to do.
Yeah.
Girl.
Yeah.
This is a beautiful journey.
Yeah.
It makes sense now.
It makes sense.
It makes total
to where we're at now.
100%. So now let's go into where you harked out. So, all right. So y'all went back.
Yeah.
Y'all got ordained.
Oh, yeah.
Licensed.
Yep.
You're opening your church.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that journey when you reopened, should I say.
Oh, yeah. So we got our first building on Derry Street, and we were there for a couple of years.
Okay.
And then God opened the door for us. Missionaries uptown in the uptown area were on the mission field. They had been praying for pastors that would take their church, and God opened a door and gave it to us.
Okay.
And so we moved in 500 Kelker Street in Harrisburg, uptown in the uptown area. So now we are growing. We have a food pantry. We're doing multiple things in our community. And it has just really been beautiful to see that transition of, being in our apartment, going into our house, because we ended up moving our church into our house, to Derry Street, to now where we are now.
Mm-hmm.
It's mind-blowing. It's the testament that there is a God that loves us. There is a God that loves us, and he'll never forget about us, leave us. And we are the evidence of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And living in that, that light, and ensuring that you're moving.
That's why I say it's our promised land. It's our promised land, because I think that a lot of times, times the enemy wants to have us focus on what we don't have, and we forget what we do have. It's like the story in the Bible where, the prophet came to the woman of God, and she said, I don't have enough oil in my house. And he said, yes, you do. You have one jar of oil, use that jar of oil. And because it's enough, if you take a step of faith, then God will, just like the 2 fish and, all these stories that we have in the Bible, they are real stories. Yes. And we see them happen in our own life. So, that's where we are now. And I love it, every step of it.
And so, girl, and then where do you then start your own ministry now? So now you guys are established. The church is established.
Yeah.
But Pastor Veronica, she out here, guys. Like, let me tell you. Now, Pastor Veronica doing the thing. So let's talk about Blossoms by Being, where did that and like all the like now we're gonna talk about
my baby.
your baby
Yeah.
and you've birthed.
Yeah.
Where did that come from? How was it birthed? And where
let's do it. So let's do it. So I having the church and I have a heart for the city, the community, right? So
and
my husband
genuinely
do. Yeah. So my husband couldn't really keep me in the four walls. And nor did when he married me, he knew I was spicy, right?
Yeah.
So I just started to really ask God, like, what does my purpose to bring souls to you, or what avenue would you like me to do that? Like, how would you like me to do that?
Absolutely.
And he gave me a vision. Okay. He gave me a vision of a 3-tier woman.
3-tiered woman.
Yep.
Okay.
And she was in a garden. And when I mean 3 women, it was 3 literally women, and they were tiered.
Okay.
They were tiered. They were tiered. So one was standing up, one was on her knees, and one was on her back.
Wow.
And I saw this garden of flowers. Okay. And as the woman that was standing up, as she was talking and she was moving in her role, like I saw this water trickle down and this water come back up. And as this water is being released, both sides, these flowers start to grow. And I woke up and I wrote it down and I'm like, what is this all about?
Right.
And over time, God began to give me the vision. Okay. And I started to do interviews with women like this and about their testimonies. Yeah. And it was called Welcome to the Garden. Okay. And I just did that for a couple years. I just did that consistently. And then I felt like God was telling me to expand it. Okay. And so I met a woman, her name is C.S. Bailey. I interviewed her. And afterwards she said, I cannot release you because I feel a call to revamp your ministry. Wow. And she was a creative being. She does websites and all this other stuff. Okay. So I was like, oh, no, I'm good. Just leave me alone with the mic. I'm good. I like being over here. And she was like, no, I think there's more. And I was like, well, I knew there was more. Right. But at that point, I was like a little hesitant on when to move because I wanted to be in the will of God, right? Right. And so I had some conversations with God, and I was like, you know what? Maybe it was meant for me to interview her. Right. Maybe it was meant for you to put me on her heart. And then she took the ministry, and she sat with me, and I told her the vision, and that's where our logo came from. That's where, I literally gave her everything God gave me, and she birthed that thing visually. And so at that point, I said, okay, God, what does this look like? And he said, I want you to view your garden, the garden I'm giving you, as a garden with a whole bunch of colonies. And within the colony, you have an apple colony, you have an orange colony, you have all these colonies. Right. But they're all colonies that represent a different woman. Wow. At every ministry I tell you to release, you have to look at it as a colony. Okay. Because colonies don't mix with other colonies. Because when I say that, too quickly. Because if you take them and add them together, you're going to hurt the colony. So I was like, okay. So in my mind, I'm like, what does that look like? So then he started to give me Well-Water Woman Community. Wow. Which is the Bible study. Yes. Every other Tuesday, or at the time was Tuesday, I would meet with them consistently. Yes. Just being consistent with Well-Water Woman Community for about a year and a half. Yes. And I just began to pour into them. Just pour. Wow. And then I birthed out Emergence, which is our budding flowers, which is our teen group, 13 to 17. Yes, okay. I don't mix them together. They're 2 different colonies, but when we come together as a community, right, we come together to really do community and impact, but we deal with everybody's individually. Okay. Right? Okay. But coming together as a community to really pump, when it comes to why God established a community. So healing can come together, fellowship, right? Yes. But not dealing with them all together as one, because they all are different flowers.
Fair. Hence the name. Yeah.
Right? The different flowers. And so then we birthed out the Essence of Peaceful Petals, which is our grieving ministry. Okay. And so just so you know, All of this is taking place while I'm running my mentorship program, because God told me he was releasing my leaders out of those mentorship programs.
Okay.
And so as I went into Journey Through the Heart of God, which is my sixth to seventh 7-month mentorship program, it is a mentorship program that is on a trauma base. And we go through 32 weeks of curriculum, and we deal from the conception to the release, basically. And so we talk about so many different topics. Are you living in reality, right? Triggers. We deal with communication. We deal with a lot of things, right? And so we come together weekly in the Heart of God. And me and my other mentor, Mary Majors, and we come together and we mentor these women. And while we mentor them, we're like literally walking with them. Some of them are going back to church. Some of them are staying married. Some of them, I mean, there's a lot of things that are happening within the Heart of God that involving the Bible when it comes to their healing. And then they graduate. And so once they graduate, that's where I'm looking at certain people like, okay, so that's where my Portia came from. Jeter, she runs my one ministry. That's where Minister Tasha comes. And Danielle comes from my garden. So
you're finding and keeping them separate.
And
they're all.
But when they come together as a community, and so part of this journey has been where and when do I bring them together, right? Because I mean, we can meet for coffee or whatever, but there has to be an event or something to bring them, and that's where Brunch with Pastor V came.
I love that. Talk about Brunch with Pastor V. I need to figure out how I'm gonna get in these things later too. I told you, Lissette's coming back outside in the most enlightening and insightful ways, because I'm not a catch me outside kind of girl, but in the ways that it's supposed to be. But all right, so now you got Brunch with V too, and how?
So when God gave me this garden to establish and do these colonies, one of the things that he told me was, I need you to do a cultivated garden. It's called cultivated garden services. And you have to look at yourself as someone like that comes out and like, you have those people that come and do your garden. Right. And they come in, they take the weeds and you spray or whatever. And so that's who you are. And so cultivated garden services, you got to bring them into a place where now you can pour into them so they can keep on pouring.
There it is.
Right. Because they're the woman that's standing up. So the woman that's standing up is a woman in leadership. A woman that's, strong. And she's pouring into the woman that's on her knees, that's trying to figure out what that looks like. What is purpose? What does it look like? When do I go? Right. And then the woman that's on her back, she is literally conceiving. She is the womb of, she's pregnant with something, but she needs all the women to help her. I would say the midwife. And so as she's pushing, so that's going to,
and then it comes back,
and then it comes up. It's like a beautiful picture of God, right? And so now we have cultivated garden services, and that's where I service the flower.
Oh my God!
So it's no different than taking your car to get an oil change,
right?
As I service the flower, so I might have a one-on-one with a woman. That's where my one-on-ones come from, or my group coaching comes from. And then Brunch with Pastor V, we meet Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, where I on live, I come on and teach the word. And then once quarterly, we come together as And I'm telling you, we went from having maybe 20 women to being sold out to 115 women in our last brunch. And these are women we've never met. Women that we have our garden, women that, have been watching brunches or, learned of us and have joined us.
Oh my God. Girl. So there's a lot, and I'm going to do my best to try and break this down.
It's okay.
For all people. But before I go there, now let's talk about where you find yourself going. Like, what is your vision for the future? Where do you see yourself headed? Like, do you have a picture? That's probably the first question. Do you even have a picture for the future? Or are you just kind of like wherever it goes? Like, what does that look like?
What I want for the future, is to continue to do what I'm doing in the aspect of growing the garden.
Okay.
I would like to see more people take advantage of the trauma-based mentorship. I have 32 women graduating in April.
That's amazing.
Yeah, 32 women from all nationalities, different ages. And so I would like to see that being utilized more. I will also like us to do more trauma-based ministry-wise. Trauma-based ministry-wise. Yeah. I think it's an area that is hidden.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of my heart. I just released last 2 weeks ago, coming back to the heart of the calling, which is for pastors and women pastors, to give them a support group to come and be poured into and grow as a community. My goal is to really expose this hidden agenda of the enemy that keeps the church bound from trauma, and and really speaking to that and really dealing with that. Just because you go to church, or just because you're a pastor, doesn't mean you have not experienced trauma. And pastors deal with trauma every day, when they're rejected, when they're abandoned, when they're lied to. I mean, we don't want to talk about it, but it's true. When they're exposed, church hurt is real. And the truth of the matter, it's like, it's not the church to Ephesus, it's the people, our humanity. And if we don't have a safe place to go and talk to, counseling and Jesus is perfect together. And I recommend it for everyone.
Amen.
So, providing more services like that, providing a hub that people can come and, really have that. But I'm going to be honest, I'm very happy with where God has us.
I can't imagine you not, girl. Yeah. You are, I'm trying my best to choose my words carefully, but you've got people that are out there that do things.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And amazing.
Most
amazing
definitely.
Things. But then you've got people, and that's why I have to give you your flowers, and go figure flowers with everything you got. But I have to give you your flowers in real time, because you're not just doing, you're being.
But I had to learn how to do that, sweetheart.
Oh, but you're...
Yeah.
Okay.
I had to learn how to do that. I mean, we talked about it earlier. My whole identity was in doing. And blossom my being is, if you don't, I was just telling somebody who wanted to be coached by me, I said, if you have your hands in too much, and the first thing I'm going to tell you is get your hands out, and you might not want to be coached by me. Because you have to be still for a minute. You have to breathe. There's power in the pause. There's power in your pause.
How am I going to do my takeaways? You are killing this, girl.
There's power in the pause. Just chill for a minute. Just breathe, relax, release. And, that's why we become anxious and we become depressed. And can I just say, because I want to make sure that I say this, God's reward to me in this season of my life has been beyond money, right? God called me to leave my job in 2023.
Okay.
In 2023, I have background in HR.
Yep.
Been working in HR, Dauphin County HR. And God called me, and I have to say this because it's so important to what we're talking about.
Yes.
God told me to leave my job, and I didn't know why.
Right.
But He ended up giving me and my husband and my daughter a gift that we have been praying for. So my husband and I have been trying to have kids.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
And God told me that my reward would not be through money, that my currency would require my faith.
Okay.
Okay. And so I knew that whatever currency was coming, it would require me to pause.
Okay.
And sit for a minute.
And sit.
I just didn't know what that looked like.
Okay.
And so while I'm creating, while I'm walking with all these women, I had an inner prayer within me that I wanted to have a child with my husband.
Beautiful.
But I knew that he wasn't able to do that, right? Only God could do that.
Yeah.
And so I remember the day I got a call that said, will you come to the hospital and pray for this baby? And I said, okay. I paused for a second, the power of the pause.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, I'm on my way. Went up there as a chaplain, prayed for the baby, not realizing that the baby that was on breathing tube and feeding tube would be my currency. Would be my currency.
Amen.
And how a little girl that the system called as baby girl because she was never named. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Her mom never got to name her.
Okay.
So they called her Miracle. She was 3 pounds.
Wow.
And so coming out in society, coming out facing so much.
Yeah.
And then coming into this world with no one.
Right.
And then being called to this someone. Was my confirmation that I was doing what I was called to do. And so when they called me back and they said, would you consider doing foster care and taking her? When God reminded me, now it's time for you to leave your job.
Wow.
And I said, God, I need 3 days.
Yeah.
Because I have a 20-year-old. I don't have a nursery. I don't have a pack and play. I don't have nothing. He said, in 3 days, I'm going to give you 3 days. Yeah. And he gave me 3 days. And everything was given to me. And I've been literally since 2023 taking care of my daughter, which is now almost 2 in June.
Oh, my God.
We're about close to a month away from adoption.
Oh, wow.
I got to name her Eliana Miracle Dixon.
I love that.
And so when I look back at all this, every hidden thing that I had in me that I felt was unanswered. Yes. I'm literally living that purpose
right now.
But I had to remain consistent with the seed.
Amen. Amen.
I had to know that even when I didn't see anything growing overground, there was something growing underground. And I had to know that. And so Eliana is my personal flower with Liana. And now my husband, he loves our baby, Liana. I mean, that's his daughter. But now I get to see this man at 50 years old being so fulfilled with both of his daughters. He has both of his daughters. He has his wife. He has his church and all of that. And I'm getting to see my own personal garden bloom.
Right.
While I see God's garden bloom.
With everything that he's also.
Which is all inclusive into one garden.
Absolutely.
And it's beautiful.
And it's those colonies. Yet
those
again,
colonies.
like you said. Ooh, girl.
I had to throw that.
No,
to give God glory for that.
Amen. And that just goes back to the testament of everything else that you have done. And it's not just in the ministry. It's literally in every aspect of your life.
Yes.
Like, he just keeps showing up.
Yep.
And showing out.
Showing out.
Like no other. Now, I always ask these girl, because you took us everywhere, but I'm not like, there's 2 questions that I never.
Really went somewhere.
We went everywhere and then some. Let me tell y'all, if y'all don't hear this, like, girl. But I always ask, and these are 2 advice questions. So this one's going to be, what advice would you give someone who is currently searching for faith or is grappling with life and like trying to find something to believe in?
I would say be patient with yourself.
I kind of, yes.
Yeah. Be patient. Show yourself grace. And don't compare your journey with nobody else. Your journey is individually fashioned for you.
Right.
And then enjoy it, like celebrate those small wins.
Amen.
Right?
Yeah.
And so anybody that's struggling with their faith, first of all, but someone that's struggling with their faith, when I hear struggling, I still hear believing.
Right.
So there is still hope.
Absolutely.
Right?
Right.
So the fact is, watering what made you believe in the first place. Because something made you believe.
Right.
And then allow that thing to organically happen. Don't force it. Don't force it. The fact that you wake up every morning, you have breath in your body is like, okay, there's another day.
Absolutely.
New goals, right? And sometimes you don't have to do anything.
Right.
It doesn't require you to do anything. But just take the fact in that you are breathing and you have purpose.
Right.
Your breath is purpose all by itself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What about, now this is going further, but it's because of what you're saying. Like when we talk about someone struggling with, that means there's at least belief.
Yeah.
What advice would you give someone who has no faith, like who does not believe in anything? Like, because I know that there's a lot of hurt people out there.
Most definitely.
And they've chosen to just not believe in anything.
Yeah. Yep.
What advice would you give that individual?
Well, I would say this, just because an individual doesn't believe in God don't mean they don't believe in something.
Amen to that. Facts.
Yeah, because once you stop believing and usually people are just hopeless. They want to die. They just, now we're talking about a whole different
world.
Yeah. But someone is believing in something.
Yeah.
They might just believe a lie.
Fair.
And that lie has become their reality.
Right.
And so if they feel like they don't believe in God, number one, you have a free will.
Fair.
You have free will. You don't want to believe in God, you don't got to believe in God.
Right.
It's okay. But also in the same token, you have to ask yourself some questions.
Yeah.
How did you get here?
Right.
Right? How did you get here? Outside. One thing I love about God is the fact that God had to show me that you kept on going back to your mom when you had to go back to me.
Ooh.
You were with me before you came to your mom. Because before you were born, I knew you. How did you know me? You knew me because you created me.
Right.
I just put an assignment on your parents to carry you into this world.
Right.
But so having those conversations of your why. What is your why? Right? I really challenge someone that struggles in believing in God is to open yourself to believe that there could possibly be more than what you are believing.
Right.
Right. Because if you're believing that you're depressed and you're always going to be depressed, then that's all you're going to see.
Right.
It's what you will bear.
Absolutely.
But if you allow yourself, even if it's the smallest thing, I always say there's power in community. Getting yourself around a supportive group of people, not of faith, if you don't believe, but more a group of people that can walk with you in the aspect of where you are right now.
Right.
And be okay with where you are right now, because where you are right now is going to be needed for where you're going.
Right.
Right. Yes, so I think that, I don't feel when I talk to people that are not saved, or I talk to people that come to me and they're like, I'm not a Christian pastor, so don't be, I don't want to hear.
Right. That's what I was asking.
And I'm like, okay, but you're a person.
Right.
You're a person.
Fair.
So can we meet you on that level of just being a person?
Right.
What are your likes?
Right.
What are your dislikes?
Absolutely.
Can we start conversation there? Don't think because I'm a pastor, the first place I'm going to go is in the Bible.
Go straight to.
I am the Bible. I'm walking the Bible, right?
Amen.
So we don't have to dialogue about all this all the time. What we can dialogue about is the things that are going to draw you.
Absolutely.
Which might open doors for what, you might not like.
Right.
Which then might be a possibility that you will like it.
Absolutely. And
but how do I know?
Until we at least, if nothing else, meet in person. Girl, there's that. And then the final question that I'll ask you, and then I'm going to do my key takeaways, and then we're going to wrap this thing up. You're going to tell them where to find you, is what advice would you give younger Veronica?
Oh, my.
That's
my. Yeah. So younger Veronica, to be honest with you, I would tell her, it might sound crazy when I say it, but you go through it.
Oh.
I would tell her, go through it. Go through it, honey. Don't run away. Don't run around it. Just go through it. I would tell her that in those moments where she felt unseen, felt disqualified,
right,
that she has to know what that feeling feels like so she doesn't create it for somebody else. Yeah. That's what I would tell my younger self, but I wouldn't change anything.
Right.
I wouldn't change anything.
Amen. Yeah.
No.
Wow. Okay. Without tearing up, let me get my lights. Now we're going to do some key takeaways. So guys, I don't even know where to begin. I don't even know what to say, but if you have lasted this long, you know that there is nothing but divine intervention in this conversation and just divine timing like no other. But I'm going to go ahead, and I always try to do a few key takeaways. So bear with me. Here we go. So key takeaway number 1 is something that you've mentioned throughout this entire conversation, and that is to allow yourself to be still. Sit. Be still. Oh, it's okay to just be. Right? And that in of itself will allow the opportunity then for whatever's to come next. But that's my first key takeaway. Like, just be still. My second key takeaway then in that arena is to, I'm trying to think how I want to word this, because it was something that you discussed and how the both of you have kind of gone through it. Well, here, I'm gonna say this next one, and then I'll go to the third one. I'm gonna say the second key takeaway is what you just finished saying about what to do with younger Veronica. And so not only be still, but allow yourself to go through whatever it is you're going through, because that in of itself will birth itself into whatever is to come. Like, you have to believe that if you're going through something, go through it and know that there is something on the other side. Mm-hmm. And that'll then lead me to my third key takeaway, which is to learn to listen. Mm-hmm. As she stated, like, there are three voices. Remember, she said that you've got the enemy's voice, you've got your own voice, and then you have God's voice. So learn to listen and learn to hear and to abide by. Mm-hmm. And then my last key takeaway in this phenomenal conversation is to, when you do all that, like, to stand firm and rooted. So with the blossoms are wings, so to stand firm and rooted in your purpose. So those are my 4 big key takeaways that I'm going to share. I could continue, but those are going to be the big ones because I feel like they lend themselves to each other. They deal with everything that we've discussed. And if you are a person that is, whether you're struggling with faith or you do not believe, if nothing else, you are a person.
That's it.
And you are here.
Yeah.
Sit with that for a little. And whatever's to come from there, like, let yourself be moved accordingly. So now in that, where can people find you? And then I'll wrap us up. So where can people find you?
So you can find us on all social media platforms.
Yes.
Under Blossom by Being. You can go to our website, www.blossombybeing.com.
Absolutely.
And that's where you can find us.
That's where we can find them. Mm-hmm. So, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Girl.
Thank you.
This is going to touch a lot of people.
I pray it does.
And if nothing else, like, in the world that we live in now, with so much hurt, so much uncertainty, so much noise.
Yeah.
It's important to have conversations about just being still and grounding ourselves and allowing whatever's to come. So there's that.
Yeah.
So as always, guys, sending light, sending love. Bye.
Bye-bye.